Yes. Class?
Yes.
You are officially moving into our last lesson about life cycles and animals and plants and other living things. And this one kind of shifts gears a little bit. We talked about plant life cycles. We talked about animal life cycles. We're going to shift gears into genetics. Does anybody have any clues what genetics are? Has anybody ever heard of genetics before? Addison?
In snakes, there's like genetics, like there could be like a pie genetic and a normal
What was the first one you said?
pied.
Tide? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know much about snakes, so I'll believe you on that. Keegan?
Genetics are things like characteristics.
Characteristics, good. So your genetics determine some of the characteristics you have, like maybe your hair color or things like that. Braylon? They are what make you you. Does anybody think that they know where your genetics come from? River? Just your mother? Your mother and your father. So let's go ahead and shift gears. We're going to look at this. It's not just humans that's true for. It's also animals. So this is our page kitty bit about Sadie's poodle. Who would like to read about Sadie's poodle for me? Emerson, loud and proud.
Sadie was a large white
Sadie has
a large white poodle. Her poodle does tricks, barks, and at strangers, and wags her tail when she's happy. Sadie and her friends have different ideas about the poodle's size, her fur color, and her behavior. Here is what they said.
good. So in your workbook, friends, you need to be on page 156. What page are you on?
156.
I'm already there.
So they're not sure about Sadie's poodle. And Sadie says, my poodle gets all of her characteristics from her parents. 156. Josh says, I think your poodle gets some characteristics from her parents and some characteristics from interacting with her environment. And then Omar says, no, I think your poodle gets all of her characteristics just from the environment. I would like you to fill out, who do you agree with the most? Sadie, it all comes from her parents. Josh, it comes from the parents and the environment. Or Omar, it's all from the environment. And then I want you to explain why you agree down below. So we are going to learn about, for sure, where our characteristics and our traits come from. And we're going to start by looking at mice, which sounds a little bit funny, but scientists use mice a lot for experiments because they're tiny and they're easy to care for, and we can test lots of things on mice that we definitely don't want to test on humans. So check out these mice. And you do not need to write this bit down, but I want you thinking, how are these mice alike? And how are they different? Think about it first, and then we're going to talk with our neighbors. How are these mice alike? What are the similarities that they have? And what are ways that these mice are different? When I say teach, I want you to try to come up with at least 2 ways that they're alike and at least 2 ways that they're different, and then we'll share as a class afterwards, okay? Teach. Online ladies, I'm going to have this in your slides, and since we can't talk as much about it, I am going to have you list 2 ways that the mice are alike and 2 ways that they're different. And when you're done with that, we're going to list any questions that you have about these mice, okay? Okay, who can tell me something that you noticed that are similarities between these 2 little mice here? Braylon? They do. They both have tails, and we know that that's something that scientists look at with animals to try to classify them. So both of them have tails. Addison?
They're both adorable.
But would that be like a scientific similarity between them?
No.
No,
They
but
both have a nose.
they aren't too bad, huh? Savannah? Oh, good, they both have a nose, yes.
They're different colors.
Oh, we're looking for similarities right now. So hold on to that thought.
But they do both have eyes.
They both have eyes, so they have kind of the same body parts, right? A tail, a nose, eyes. What else do they have? Ears. Their feet look the same. What are ways that? Oh, good, whiskers. Yes. What are ways that they look different?
They both
What are some differences between these two guys here? Macy. Yeah, it kind of looks like the white one's ears look larger than the darker one, right? I like that. Ellie?
The black one has a little white and the white one is all white.
Oh, and I heard you kind of giving me some clarifications on colors. Are they the same color?
No.
So they're different colors. One is totally white, and one is mostly dark with a little white patch, right? Did you guys notice other differences between these two? Riley, did you notice another one? Keegan?
The white one is a little taller.
He might be a little bit bigger. It could also be the angle of the picture, right? You guys did a great job with that. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Oh, I want to show you a geneticist, though. And I know you guys did an awesome job with that, but those are those main similarities and differences. It's really hard to tell. Dax, would you hit my middle row of lights? It's really hard to tell on the projection screen, but when you're looking on my computer screen, and hopefully when the lights go off, you can kind of tell. This rat's eyes, or my mouse's eyes, are really just a dark black. These ones in my picture look more reddish. Does anybody know when animals don't have any color in their fur and their eyes get like a pinkish reddish color? Does anybody know what we call that? Addison?
They're albino.
Albino! Raise your hand if you've heard of an albino animal before. During this unit, we're going to learn what makes an animal have albino traits. So that'll be one of the things to kind of keep in your mind. We're going to first, though, talk about a geneticist. What is this career?
A geneticist.
So who would like to read here about a geneticist for me? And that word is kind of a tricky one, but it's geneticist. Riley, loud and proud. Geneticist?
Studies genetics.
Just a geneticist studies genetics. Can everyone say that one?
A geneticist studies genetics.
Nice. Take it away, Riley.
They understand how traits get passed down from parents to offspring.
Good. Now look in your workbook. And there's more information. We've got a new career kid, and it's Noah. And Noah is a nurse, okay? Now this is a career that would be really important because geneticists study some more things about the insides of our bodies. And so follow along with me as I read. Ladies, we are on page 157 in our workbooks, okay? It says, I am a geneticist, and my job is to study genetics. I examine how adults pass on traits to their young through genes. I use different kinds of instruments or tools in a lab to do most of my work. I gather information about traits of people,
Plants and animals.
It's very important for me to collect and analyze data to continue learning about different traits. Pictures can reveal many of the traits that parents pass down to their offspring. If you look at a picture of a cat and her kittens, you'll probably see that they look alike in many ways, but not always. Parents also pass on traits that affect the way that their offspring behave. That is another fascinating part of genetics that I get to explore in my work. So who would like to read the speech bubble from Noah there? Rylan? Geneticist?
Understands how traits gets passed down from pairs to offspring.
So from parents to offspring. I noticed that Noah is actually not labeled as a geneticist. What is Noah's career labeled as?
Nurse.
He's a nurse. I actually have a connection to this. Last night I was playing volleyball, and one of my friends is a nurse. And she was talking about all the people coming in with COVID, right? And some people get lots of symptoms. Like my mom got really sick and she didn't feel good at all, but my dad had COVID and he didn't have any symptoms. And this nurse was saying, well, you know, she goes, is your dad type O blood? I said, he is. She said, well, for some reason, the genetics of type O blood don't seem to have as many negative side effects as other people. And we said that was really fascinating. And my friend's not a geneticist, but she's a nurse, and so she's constantly working with doctors and taking data from blood panels and things of people. So she's learning more about the insides of our bodies. And would you learn about genetics by just looking at people, or do you have to know about the insides of their bodies too?
Inside.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing for learning more. If you turn your page to 158, let's answer some more questions here about a geneticist. First one says, what do you think the term genetics means? Now this, if you don't remember, you can look back at your kind of yellow notebook chunk on the page before, right? What do you think the term genetics means? Savannah.
I just have a question, but what's her last name, Rivera?
No, I actually don't know her last name. She was one of Shannon's friends. I was subbing on her team.
Name?
Lucy.
But because Stella's mom is a nurse.
Oh, no, she lives in Bellevue. Hendrix, what do you think the term genetics means?
I was going to say that my dad's not a nurse, but he works in the
Cool. What do we think the term genetics means? Who can find that from this last page? Geneticists study genetics. What do we think that means based on your clues from there? Keegan. 158. Ooh, characteristics works. That would be one thing. Characteristics of what? Keegan? Kinda. When I look up the definition of genetics, it actually says the study of heredity and inherited characteristics. So characteristics and traits from what? If it's inherited or part of heredity, where do we get these characteristics and traits from? River? Where do we get all these characteristics and traits from?
You answered a while ago. Mother and father.
Your mom and dad, from parents. Very good. Yes, ma'am. Because all of us get our characteristics and traits from a mom and a dad. That's how we get them. So even if like I have a lot more similar appearances to my dad, my mom and I seem to act more alike. And so you usually have things from both parents, and you might favor one more than the other. Kind of like we talked about our right brain and our left brain. A lot of us lean more towards one side, but we always have things in both areas. So go ahead and get that down. And really quick add there, it's the study of those things. So it's the study of the characteristics and traits from our parents. Okay, so for this next question, it says, where does this geneticist do most of his or her work? Now, the person who was talking to us was Noah, who was a nurse. Did it say where Noah does most of his work at?
I don't know. I wasn't listening.
You might have to go back if you weren't listening really closely. You might have to go back and look. What do you think, Daxman? Savannah?
In the lab.
Yes, I use different kinds of instruments in a lab to do most of my work. Good catch, girly. Do you guys know what they mean by that in a lab?
Yeah.
Emerson?
It's like my my mom's a surgical technologist, so she works there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's like a room where people get like surgery.
Actually, labs are not where people have surgery. There are labs in the same buildings as where surgeries happen, but the lab is where they would take all of their data and maybe things from surgery, and they're going to really analyze it, and they're going to run tests on things, and they're going to record data so that they know how to take care of things.
That's what my mom does.
So, clase.
See.
That leads us to our essential question of this new lesson. Instead of talking about plant and animal life cycles, they want to know what affects an organism's traits. We talked about this with the poodle at the beginning. Do we think that it just comes from our parents, it just comes from our environment, or both? Go ahead and jot down which one you think. And I'll list all three so that you can know how to write them, okay? You can say parents. You can say environment. Or you can say both our parents and our environment. You choose which answer you are putting for this question. Yes, ma'am. You bet.
Where does your mom work?
Southeast Community College.
Cool.
My mom's like in the science. My grandma's also a technologist.
Hocus pocus. For this investigation, which is on your workbook page 159, it says to look in a mirror. We're not all going to do that because it would take us much too long. We don't have enough mirrors. However, we've got partners. And you know how in our CKLA, Samuel asked his friend to be his eyes?
Yeah.
We're kind of going to ask our neighbors to do that. So when I say teach, you're going to get with your partner. And for example, if Skylar and I were partners, I would say, Skylar would say, Mrs. Schultz, do I have freckles or not? And I would look and I'd say, no, I don't think I see any freckles. Now, you might pull your mask just like a hair. Keep your nose covered, but sometimes people's freckles start a little bit lower than like way up here. And then you say, hey, what's my eye color? Brown, blue, or other? And I say, well, Skylar, your eyes are brown. And then you'd say, is my hairline straight or pointed? And I would tell him. You might know on your own, right? I was just checking mine. Some days my eyes are really blue, and some days my eyes are really green, so I would probably put hazel for this, okay? You are going to write down your own traits, not what your neighbor has. Capiche? So for example, when Skylar meets with me and he asks me about himself, Gunnar, when I give him his answer, like, Skylar, your eyes are brown, he will write brown on his workbook page. And then I'll say, well, Skylar, what color are my eyes?
Hazel.
Hazel. So I would write hazel down on my workbook.
What is the difference?
Okay.
What is the difference?
Pass.
Yes.
You don't have to put, says brown, blue, or other. So maybe instead of blue, green, brown, hazel, we'll just have brown, blue, or other, because I know sometimes it's hard to say that you've got hazel eyes if you know that they favor one or the other. So those are the only three options that we'll put there. Go ahead and turn with your neighbors, and I will be coming around and helping you guys out. So now that you have collected your own data, we are on page 160 in our workbooks, and we are ready to record this data. So let me shift over to my workbook here. And I'm going to have you guys all raise your hands because this is the data I'm going to share with my online girls so that they've got more information to make their graphs, okay? Uh-oh. Please raise your hand if you do have freckles. If in your chart you recorded, yes, I have freckles. Savannah, Maddie, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, go ahead and write 10 in our freckles box. Raise your hand if you wrote down that you do not have freckles. You have no freckles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I make 9. We're missing a few people, so that adds up. So we're working with 19 people right now, including me.
Kevin doesn't have freckles.
What's that?
Kevin doesn't have freckles.
But we're not going to record them today because they're not here. Raise your hand if you had brown eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brown eyes. Raise your hand if you had blue eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wowza, 9 blue eyes. And raise your hand if you were other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that add up to 19? Uh-oh. Oh, did I miss you on no freckles, Jade? Is that what you were saying?
No, I have freckles. No, where is it? You said it.
Would you all raise your hand for if you do have freckles again so I can double check my count? I think I missed a hand.
But I have a question.
Raise your hand if you do have freckles.
Does Jade
4,
have
5,
freckles?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Does Jade?
Ooh,
No,
yes,
does-
she does. Sorry, friends. Freckles is actually 11.
Yes, I do. I have one freckle on my nose.
You do have freckles too.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you had a pointed hairline.
Yeah, that's a lot of freckles.
Ooh, Jackson, our only one in here. That means if we have 20 friends that we're recording right now, how many should we have for straight hairlines?
19.
Let's double check. Raise your hand if you have a straight hairline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Wait, how
Alrighty. Now, class.
Yes.
We are going to draw a bar graph to represent this data. Kind of like what we've been doing in math, right? This is going to have to happen tomorrow because we're a little short on time right now. However, I am curious down below, was your prediction about the most common trait correct? Go back and look at your predictions.
Well, what if it's like one?
And you can fill out number 1 and we will talk about
What if
number
it-
2 tomorrow.